From MTN News, this is Montana This Morning.
Who will be Gallatin County's new health officer? We talk with the outgoing officer about that future coming up.
I'm Mike Dennison and Helena. Get ready for a big push on the expansion of high-speed internet across Montana.
6:30, almost 6:31 on this Tuesday. Chad Lehman, Holly Brantley, Matt Elwell with you out there. A little breezy in places here in southwest Montana, and that wind just drying things out, which is not what we need this time of year.
And we're going to talk coming up in just a little bit about where we stand for the month and how things stack up. So stay tuned for that. Temperatures this morning into the 50s for most of us, 48 in West Yellowstone, 42 in Phillipsburg. The chance of thunder showers really most dominant west of the divide, out toward Butte around 2-3 o'clock. I can't rule out a few showers east of the divide, but I think for the most part, the most activity is going to be out toward Butte and out toward Livingston, skipping the Bozeman area. Daytime highs into the mid to upper 70s to low 80s. Again, a windy afternoon with mild temperatures, a couple of warm days, and then the temperatures go the other direction. We'll talk about how cool things will be coming up in just a few minutes.
Thank you, Matt. Well, this morning, Gallatin County Commissioners and Bozeman City Commissioners will be tasked with approving former Gallatin City County Health Officer Matt Kelly's replacement into that role. That choice is expected to be Lori Christensen, the current interim health officer.
But for the past year and a half, the county has experienced pandemic stresses, questions, anger, changing policies and restrictions, and economic difficulty. Kelly broke down a list of challenges that Christensen, upon board approval, will be faced with moving forward, saying some of the most significant challenges will not be directly COVID-related or legislation-related, as commissioners in the Board of Health will be tasked with adapting to changes like those coming from House Bill 257. Kelly says Christensen will be at the front lines of the health department's efforts to improve the behavioral health system in the county, including public mental health. He adds that would include helping families of young children to address needs earlier.
From cradle to grave, we can do a better job at providing behavioral health services that keep people out of crisis. And we just don't have that system yet. And it's not just this community, it's statewide, it's frankly nationwide. And I think that when we look at our community health assessment, when we look at our community health improvement plan, that behavioral health system is going to be front and center in the work that we need to be doing.
Now, Kelly also says another major area of challenges for the new health officer, efforts against chronic diseases like heart and pulmonary disease. Kelly says it will fall to the health department also to better help people quit smoking, vaping, find ways to stay active and prevent substance abuse. As the community is well positioned to do so, but still has some work to do. County Commission meets today at 9 o'clock. Bozeman City Commission tonight at 6 p.m.
Well, last week we reported on how Montana and the Gianforte administration plans to implement the spending of at least $1.6 billion in federal COVID aid in the state.
One of the most significant parts of that spending will be a huge effort to expand access to high-speed internet service here in Montana.
This morning, MTN's Mike Dennison tells us more about how that spending will be determined and how fast Montana could see results.
Now, MTN Politics with Chief Political Reporter Mike Dennison.
Last week, I reported on how Montana and the Gianforte administration plans to implement the spending of at least $1.6 billion in federal COVID-19 aid in the state. One of the most significant parts of that spending will be a huge effort to expand access to high-speed internet service in Montana. Today, we tell you more about how that spending will be determined and how fast Montana could see results. The legislature set aside $275 million for this multi-year project, and starting Tuesday, a 9-member commission of lawmakers and Gianforte administration officials gets the ball rolling.
Just recently, in the past couple of days, I've had about 3 or 4 companies reach out to me and say, when do we get to start getting projects out to you? When are you going to start, looking at mapping? So they're asking questions now. We're going to have answers.
Ellsworth is a commission member and sponsored the bill outlining the process. Internet firms can submit proposals and must provide at least 20% of the project's funding. Local governments also can partner with these private companies on projects. The commission will review proposals and make recommendations, but Gianforte's Commerce Department makes the final call. The priority is to create service in unserved parts of Montana, including so-called frontier areas where no service exists.
Now we've got to do that last mile, that last stretch where, I look at where I live, 2 miles from town. Between me and town, there's probably a total of about 100 houses along the way and 50 houses at that last mile. So I think that's where we're really going to see the benefit.
Yet questions remain on many fronts. For example, can the money be used to build towers that can shoot a wireless signal down that last mile? Is there adequate mapping to accurately identify which areas are without good service? And can companies get the materials they need in a timely fashion, like fiber optic cable?
We're going to be competing with other states across the nation for this fiber as well. And so maybe that could hurt for timing.
Jeff Feist of the Montana Telecommunications Association says the commission will be a key entity to address these potential pitfalls. Those involved also acknowledge it will be at least a year, probably longer, before fiber starts going into the ground and actually creating new service. Still, commission members believe the legislature has created some solid guidelines in law to guide the process toward a good outcome.
We definitely want to utilize these funds efficiently and effectively. And that's the reason why we have the commission, is to be able to have a eyes-on approach so that we can see where these funds are being spent, how they're being spent.
Of all the federal COVID relief programs, this one may be the hardest to get it right, given all the moving parts and the sheer landscape of Montana. But across much of Montana, there's no denying the need for faster broadband service. Reporting from Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
Now, Mike also tells us the program is set up to accept even more public funds if Congress passes an additional infrastructure bill.
Well, as restaurants, warehouses, and manufacturers struggle to hire workers, some are thinking twice before returning to low-paying jobs.
But in the cannabis industry, Amanda Brandeis explains how employers are answering calls for equality.
We want anybody to be comfortable coming in here.
Once a symbol of American counterculture,
We wanted to sort of break the stigma of the trap shop.
is now a path to the American dream.
Separate our flour. This is our flour bar.
The shelves lined with carefully curated products wrapped in sleek packaging.
This one's probably one of my favorites. This is the fresh baked GMO.
Craft cannabis sourced from farms free of pesticides.
Anybody can come and be comfortable here and not feel like they're in a weed shop.
1 in 3 Americans now live in states where recreational marijuana is legal.
The industry itself is a startup. We have banking now, but when we first opened, we had to line up 100 envelopes on the table.
And dispensaries like March and Ash show how far the industry's come.
We now employ over 350 workers.
With 4 locations in Southern California and 4 more on the way.
They believe in the industry and the product. A lot of well-educated workers that could be doing a lot of different things.
Who don't just want a job, but a career.
You have reception, security, concierge, fulfillment, delivery. But behind that, you have marketing, you have accounting, you have legal.
His employees now unionizing, joining thousands of other cannabis workers coast to coast, seeking job security, benefits, and legitimacy.
Some people have family members who don't want them in the industry, but now it's, hey, not only do I work for a company that people respect, March and Ash, but I work for a union.
But the effort's been a years-long process.
It was square peg, round hole. They were taking models from like the grocery industry and just assuming that cannabis workers would fit into that model.
We were able to put committees together, groups from each location, and asking them what are some of the things that you would want to see on your contract.
Maribel McKenzie negotiated on behalf of cannabis workers, helping them reach an agreement tailored to the industry.
Things that workers definitely brought up to our attention during COVID. There's a lot of single parents.
We know that because early on in like custody disputes, one side would often use the fact that the other was in the cannabis industry to try to gain leverage in court.
The contract will reimburse employees for daycare and worker education. Unable to access traditional 401ks, the agreement created a fund to support retirement plans.
There's a cost, but to us it's just an investment in our employees.
It also guarantees wage increases and paid time off.
And as ownership, there's a lot of cleaning up needed in this industry.
He hopes their union agreement sets a new standard.
Be willing to tell the union we're going to break that apart and then do the hard work of creating something new.
In San Diego,
we've kind of put our money where our mouth is, so to speak.
I'm Amanda Brandeis reporting.
It'll be interesting to see what happens here as Montana's industry starts to get going here next year. if some of that will be seen here in Montana as well.
And it is indeed getting going.
Oh, yes.
You can
Oh,
see the results everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, when Montana This Morning returns, flying around the planet without suffering jet lag. A new device might just be the ticket to a cure. That story when we come back.
Good morning to you. Ahead on CBS This Morning, how the FBI recovered millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin that Colonial Pipeline paid in ransom last month during that cyber attack. Also, 4 U.S. senators sit down with us to discuss the Senate's new report on security and intelligence failures that led to the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol. And first on CBS This Morning, we like when we can say that. I'm going to say it again. First on CBS This Morning, Grammy-nominated artist, that's Mike Posner, on climbing Mount Everest. How did he do that? Why he hopes it will inspire others, and his plans for another adventure. We'll see you 7 o'clock, top of the hour.